Right then, how you doing?
Very good, very good. As I said, I'm very pleasantly surprised on the professionalism of the setup.
Yeah, it's just,
not something I'm used to, but it's great.
It's been a process. I mean, like I was saying, we started off with one and you've now got 3 cameras, got a professional video editor and videographer, right, Ravi? Got a light something. But yeah, welcome to episode 11 of the ViDERE podcast.
Very privileged to be here, very excited. And yeah, I should probably say it was my fault this hasn't happened any earlier due to poor diary management. So
it's
hopefully,
cool. It's one of those.
Worth the wait.
Yeah, when you're a busy man, you got a big project that you're managing.
Absolutely,
moment, so I can understand. Would you like to introduce yourself in terms of what you want to do?
So my name's Sunil Johal, Sunny, which is a much easier version to use. I'm working on the Paradise development in Birmingham City Centre, which was the former home of the old Birmingham Library. Those who are born and bred in Birmingham will know that building very well. And very fortunate to be doing what I'm doing with a great team around me in changing the heart of the city, really. And for me, it's even more personal because I still remember using the old library when I was a kid, primary school, and the way we've been able to shape it through the development. It's really exciting. And it's even more exciting when you start to hear the feedback from further afield where people aren't associated with the city and you hear them talking about the Paradise development. I would probably say it's probably the best development in the UK, but that might be me being slightly biased.
Because I mean, obviously being a Bromley born and bred myself,
absolutely,
from Birmingham, lived there all my life, I've seen the change. Yeah. Not just in that area, but just across the whole city. And for me, like outside of the big boring, which obviously was a massive change from what was there before, the way you've gone about sort of designing and sort of implementing that whole sort of multi-use sort of space in terms of how it's used by different parts of the sort of community, the business community, the residential community, as well as obviously the council and all the different amenities in that area. For me, it's a real standout project for the city, and I think when it's finished, it's going back to like a real sort of hub to draw people into to sort of like, I think that talk that you did a few months ago. One of the things that stood out to me was this whole thing around 24-hour cities always have something to sort of stay around for. So as soon as 6 o'clock comes along, most cities, most sort of quite smaller cities, it's like a ghost town, isn't it?
It becomes very hollow.
That's right.
Absolutely.
And for me, the fact that the way you've developed this whole space with the intention of sort of trying to make Birmingham more of a 24-hour city, it's got more to offer.
Absolutely. I mean, I have not been kind of part of the development as long as some of my other colleagues, and there's a good few there that have been on there for a good period of time, and there's some really good guys part of Argent who have really masterminded the master plan for Paradise, and the key for us has always been connectivity and human-centric kind of design, and really putting the user experience to the heart of the development and not just concentrating on the buildings. It's all about kind of the experience through the development, which is why Brindley Place was a great example of that. One of the earlier Argent developments.
Oh, so Argent was involved with that?
That's right, okay. In the 80s, straight into the 90s. And then King's Cross, more recently, has just kind of, set new standards and precedents for the whole development world. Right. And also what we're doing here on Paradise, it's... So
is Argent a Birmingham-based company?
It was, I don't think it was Birmingham, it was Birmingham-based, but Birmingham was one of their main markers, if you like, to really set the Argent brand, and what Argent brings to kind of to UK real estate, a big regeneration, really. So very lucky to be part of what we're trying to create here, and public open space is really important for us, because that's where real value is created. Right. And we are always talking and thinking about how do we attract people to an area, and what makes people want to come to that area to either just kind of relax, sit down, watch other people go by, good experiential kind of measures which kind of tie into what sort of, food and beverage offers are kind of incorporated within that space. How it also reacts and is able to accommodate different demographics, different generations, which is really important because, we're entering a time frame now where, there'll be, by 2025, 5 generations in the working population.
I think for me that's a hallmark of a real city. It's that melting pot of different generations, different
cultures,
demographics, and different
absolutely.
cultures. And I think and it's almost, for me, that's how a city sort of develops its own identity. Yeah. Because you have a unique blend of people.
We've got the best people in Birmingham.
Oh, obviously, yeah.
We really have, and it's a very multicultural city, and I think we should be proud of that. Yeah. We don't talk highly of our city enough.
We don't.
And we need to start doing more of that, all of us.
With that said, though, I mean, I spend a lot of time with just various different sort of people in the sort of design and build world, as well as just sort of general day-to-day outside of the city. And Birmingham's reputation is actually, a lot of it sort of based on how the city was maybe 10 years ago.
Even before that, I'd say post World War II, really, when it got annihilated, and it was kind of really kind of driven towards heavy engineering, big highways, a lot of severance in the city, a lot of big kind of concrete structures, which almost took the people away from the from the main kind of land service and kind of put people beneath and put the car and the cars almost became the king of the city and were elevated to all these kind of highways, which have effectively, disjointed the connectivity within Birmingham over the last kind of, 40, 50 years. So we're kind of trying to put a little bit of that right as well, what we're doing on Paradise. And you might have remembered the old gyratory, which used to be run underneath the library, which we've taken out and made it a completely kind of, walkable space. There's a whole new connection from the east to the west of the city now through those great squares that we can start to celebrate, Victoria Square through to Chamberlain Square, through to the newly refurbished Centenary Square. And, it almost becomes a part of the city that people will come to Birmingham to see, as opposed to historically coming to Birmingham, doing your shopping at the Bullring and then kind of ignoring the rest of the city and going back on the train. So actually, people won't just be turning right to the Bullring anymore, they'll be turning left to come not just to Paradise, but also to Centenary Square and also Chamberlain Square to really, appreciate some of the great architecture and history that we've got.
I think what's really cool as well is the way that you've this whole project, when it's completed, it will really link sort of some of the outskirts areas of the city as well.
It's so important. It's so important. We almost kind of see Paradise as a bit of a catalyst to help bring and kind of add value to the peripheral areas, really. And we like to think we've already started to do that. I think Arena Central has kind of been a big factor of that as well. We've got the Midland Metro Tram, which starts to connect different types of the city together, which previously were a car journey away, which is really great. So that type of infrastructure which is coming through is only benefiting the city.
It's really important to have that because, again, you see that as a hallmark of major cities, is that real ease of connectivity from one place to another.
You think about some of the best cities that you've been to, and you ask yourself the question, why did I enjoy visiting that city? 9 times out of 10, it's because you can walk everywhere.
Don't need a car, do you?
You don't have to get on in a car. You can, most places are kind of, no more than 30, 35 minutes end to end, walking distance. Paris, Amsterdam, all those great cities, Copenhagen, have all got that type of environment. It's quite ironic, really, that we're putting trams back in, which were ripped out many years ago within the city. But it's great to see that kind of that inner ring road, where the city's naturally been kind of enclosed within, is being heavily kind of human focused, really, and walkability is absolutely the primary key to making this city being really attractive, because we are on a global scale now. With globalisation happening, kind of whole war for talent, you know, cities are almost not competing against cities in the same kind of countries themselves, but they're competing against cities around the world. Right, so what's going to make your city, our city, be very different to those sorts of cities? And I think that's where, you know, everything is starting to become really around the human being again, which is really important.
So tell me a bit about your travels, because I remember sitting down listening to your talk during that breakfast meeting. So you've been to various cities, and one of the things I got from your talk that you delivered here, that breakfast sort of presentation, was you've seen how different cities have placed human beings at the centre of their philosophy in terms of how they create it.
Absolutely. I think, you know, Singapore are the primary example of what they're doing over there, and I do recommend people really looking into what they are introducing. You know, the brilliant thing about Singapore is it's that reconnection of nature to human beings, which is really important, and just the fact that, you know, there's a real understanding now of urbanisation and how we've been completely disconnected with where and what nature, you know, and how nature kind of was associated with human beings. You go back to the hunter-gatherer year, you know, 20,000 odd years ago, you know, our environment was very, very different to the big kind of city, highway-driven areas that we see today, really. And that kind of disconnection from nature, in my view, has kind of been quite a big factor as to why we're starting to see, you know, various kind of diseases occur and performance kind of, you know, reduced through not just workspace, but just generally as a human being, you know. And what we're seeing now is cities kind of going back to basic principles to try and reconnect that nature piece back to humans, because actually there's a real connection, tangible connection on how we actually how we perform and how we're able to manage our energy levels as well. And
I mean, I have a theory around that. So kind of like what you were talking about, how the urbanization process has sort of disconnected us from nature, and I think that whole sort of process and that whole evolution in terms of like how human beings have been able to shape their own environment and sort of make it their own has almost created different types of problems. So
absolutely,
at the hunter-gatherers sort of period of time, the biggest problem that we were thinking about is sort of food next week.
Surviving.
A marauding tribe coming to take our families away, or a saber-toothed tiger jumping out of the bushes and sort of attacking us while we're trying to sort of live our day-to-day life.
For sure.
And those were the immediate sources of stress and anxiety. Now the immediate sources of stress and anxiety are your co-workers, your ability to sort of progress within your profession, in your career. And I think the brain has always evolved a way to identify problems or fear within your immediate environment.
Absolutely.
And this is where I think this whole area around workplace stress has become sort of really sort of a real sort of prominent issue in today's conversation around how companies organise and design their spaces. Because of that, literally that fact that the key area around where people sort of get all their anxiety and stress is what's happening at work. They spend most of their time at work.
We all spend, it's a bit of a statistic, but around 85 to 90,000 hours of our life in what we call work.
That's a lot.
So that's a hell of a long time of your lifetime that you're spending in an environment which not always is to your benefit.
That's right.
So what we're seeing as well through the development world is this whole understanding and integration now of obviously biophilic measures to help that disconnection piece we spoke about from nature to human beings, but actually understanding what the benefits of that actually is. And I think over the last kind of 12 to 24 months, there are now actual real case studies, and you know, there's research that are proving that there's an absolute net benefit of these measures being introduced.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things you've probably been seeing on the social channels, I've been sort of talking about it constantly.
You're fanatical, aren't you?
I've become, we completed a study about sort of 6 months ago now, a small sort of like web development company in the city centre. And what we were doing, as you've probably seen, we sat in front of one of our aquariums, took their blood pressure before and after, and then we was finding that by sitting in front of the tank for 10 minutes, it was almost having like a therapeutic effect on them, and their blood pressure on average was dropping by about between 10 to 15%. Now, if you think of, and one of the things that we noticed also as well was that the management was where the highest amount of stress and anxiety.
Absolutely.
Were sort of physiologically present in terms of their blood pressure and their heart rate. And to me, in terms of this was a small case study with a sample of like 13 people. It wasn't a huge statistically sort of verifiable study, but in the sense that it still added to that body of work what you're talking about in the last 24 months. It's the number one thing that a lot of companies are paying attention to now.
Absolutely.
How can we firstly improve the day-to-day experience of people
100%.
when they work within our space?
Absolutely.
And for me, I kind of look at that there's a real big connection between brand and biophilia.
Mm-hmm.
So if we can incorporate nature into our spaces, make the people who are working in these environments a lot happier, that translates into better interactions with people outside of the company, i.e. suppliers and obviously clients. Yeah. Clients are happy, suppliers are happy to help support your business outcomes. And eventually that's your reputation, isn't it? So your reputation is your brand. That's the thing that people sort of know what you're known for. Yeah. So I think having that intention to not just sort of create a space that's just appealing to the clients and just sort of make that initial first impression, but actually make that lasting impression through the people that are working within your organisation and focus on your team.
Look, you look at typical operational kind of cost for a business, you know, it's around maybe just under 1% for your energy bills. It's probably about, I don't know, maybe 9 to 12% property costs. The rest of it's your people. Yeah. Yeah. So if you're going to actually start to build efficiencies within your business, you want your people to start performing a lot better. Mm. Your people will start performing a lot better if you make sure the environment around them is absolutely kind of akin to what these guys need to be doing. And, you know, there's no point putting someone in a very dark, badly lit, with hardly any air type of room, because within 2 or 3 hours, they'll be completely demoralised. There'll be no motivation there to work, and they'll be very miserable.
And that's irrespective of how much you're paying them?
Absolutely. Money becomes completely irrelevant in those in that situation. And you look at the statistics on kind of workspace, you know, the amount of people that don't have the accessibility to daylight, the accessibility to good air quality, the accessibility to good quality lighting, the ability just to to get real fresh air during the day. Yeah. You know, it's quite shocking, really. And you think about that on a macro scale. Well, what's that doing to their productivity and their efficiency of working? And then you start to kind of add that together from an economy perspective. You're thinking, wow, that's pretty serious, really. Yeah. If we actually start to build in things to help combat that lack of productivity or that kind of, you know, that space that doesn't really facilitate people's best potential, then how else will we attack it? Because we can't just keep on giving money good packages and good salaries, because that's not going to work. No. Yeah. So one of the things that I'm really passionate about is kind of optimizing performance. Okay. And one of the things that I see a big part of that is bringing people into environments which have that connection with nature, that really kind of evoke natural analogues, that really feel like they're connected back to the earth, really. You think about, if you had the choice, any choice, what type of environment would you want to work in?
Well, naturally somewhere that has all those
some of my best thinking.
When you're on holiday?
when I'm on holiday, or when I've taken my daughter on a park walk and she's gone completely KO'd on me, and I'm like, great, this is bedtime time. I'm just sitting there, looking at the ducks in the water, being amongst the trees.
And those flickers of like genius just pop into your head.
What that does to your cognitive performance is unbelievable, really. And you have a complete, clear mind to be able to be creative.
Yeah.
And where we are now as a society, and it's just basically, you know, with where how technology has kind of, you know, rapidly and exponentially grown. We are in a society of pure distraction, complete distraction. So, you know, we are unable now to differentiate between what is work, you know, what is living.
Because you're always on, aren't you?
You are always on, and you know, we're not actually being anymore. We're constantly doing. So
that's a really interesting.
It's so true when you start to think about it, because you know, when you think about the times, when you reflect the times during the day when you've actually shut yourself off and been able to reflect or center yourself from the normal day-to-day kind of shenanigans that you kind of deal with, it's very limited for a lot of people. You know, once you're on that train and you hit work in the morning, that's it, and then all of a sudden you realise that, wow, I've been sitting there for 8-9 hours.
That's what you just said is so profound, because it's literally just sort of flicked the light bulb in my head, because I'm always doing stuff. So obviously I run my own business and there's always stuff to do. 100%. And when I think about sort of the only few times where I'm actually being is when I'm either on a run through the park or to sort of, and it's very rare I get that I'll find the time to actually stop in those spaces, because obviously there's always stuff to do. The only other time I'm actually being is when I'm making these.
Absolutely.
I'm actually physically sort of in that creative
You're immersed
state,
within
within nature, and I love touching and just being a part of that energy.
Yeah.
And I think it's incumbent on everyone to find what puts them in that being state as opposed to being in that doing state. I
think you're so right. I think, you know, the whole, I mean, biophily, what does it mean? It's the love of nature, isn't it?
Life,
you know, which is what it should all be about. But even whether you're an employer or an employee, it doesn't have to be complicated to bring that connection together. Okay. It doesn't have to be lots of capital investment in your current workspace to make it happen. Why don't you actually give your people the freedom to go out to a place where there is nature and actually work within that environment? Yeah. You know, instead of trying to bring it all from the outside in, just take your people out.
But this is where, for me, like in terms of like what my company is about, it's around nature, art, and culture.
Sure.
And for me, culture comes back to a company's approach to
massively.
How do they actually manage and interact with people?
So difficult. There is. I mean, we're in this kind of in this realm now where mobility changes what a working day looks like. You know, we are. Let's face it, most people are on their phones from 6 a.m. through to midnight, tapping. Yep. I don't know how many thousands of times we probably all individually tap our phones during the day, or are somehow connected to some sort of technology. We've almost got this, you know, direct. It's almost an extension of our limb now, isn't it? Whether it's an iPhone or a computer or a laptop or an iPad or what have you. And
have you ever been in a city where your phone battery finishes, like your phone battery cuts off?
I think I might have actually. Yeah.
And that feeling is literally like what you're saying. It's like an extension of your body.
It is. Just, you know, and you see people panicking, and you know, people have lost this complete ability to just be able to talk and just enjoy. And I think that's what this whole piece is also trying to combat as well. Really.
What, biophilia?
Absolutely. Because a really big piece to our health and well-being is community. And you don't do that really by texting people or WhatsApping people, etc. You do that by getting together in a space, in an environment where you can actually enjoy each other's company.
I think I disagree to some extent.
Okay.
So I think the technology and this digital era has enabled us to connect to each other.
Yes.
But I think it's almost like a pseudo version of the reality. It's like a virtual version of it. So I always look at like my activities, what I do online, as a way to sort of open the door.
Yeah.
The real sort of business interactions that take place happens when I sit someone with someone face to face and have those conversations in a meaningful sort of process.
Yeah.
And I think the same applies to sort of how we are as human beings in the state that we're in now. I think we're going through this sort of transition stage where we've discovered the technology has evolved at a faster rate than the human mind, effectively.
Absolutely.
And so the human mind's almost like not been had the capacity to know how to handle this new tool, this new sort of energy that you can
complete information overload.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so I think we're going through a sort of like a phase now where we're evolving to understand how to sort of temper that technology and temper how we interact with it. Because there's so many people now that are aware of the fact that we're probably a bit too reliant. We're probably connecting in too much. Like you said, it's just constant state of doing and finding out what's going on. And I think we're eventually sort of taking it back to a place where people are actually more trying to value those interpersonal connections.
Absolutely. I mean, technology should be a supporting mechanism. Really.
100%.
You know, that's what it should be used for, but it should not be the dominant factor on how we do things. Really.
But I think it's shifting. I think it's definitely shifting.
Yeah.
I think not just in the sort of A&D sort of design space, but just generally in all facets of different cultures within society. I think we're more taking a more of approach of how can we sort of find ways to sort of interconnect. Yes, and I think even just down to sort of the different amenities you see popping up around the city. Yeah. For me, they're all sort of trying to find or create interesting ways to get people out of their homes and get them together, and interacting and just sort of enjoying each other's company.
Absolutely, it should be complementing what we normally do as human beings, really. And I think that's just the learning curve that we're, as a species, are on, really. It's such transformational what we're experiencing at the moment, and we'll continue to experience. There's no real storybook or manual to say this is how you do it. It's a completely evolving and ever learning process.
Do you listen to the Joe Rogan podcast?
I don't actually know.
He had Elon Musk on his podcast.
Okay.
It must have been a few months ago, and there was something that he said to me that really stood out. And he was describing the human being's state at the moment as almost like an android. Yeah. So not an android, like a cyborg. Okay. So it's sort of like half organic, half sort of technological or not mechanic. And he was proposing the idea that at some point there's going to be like a perfect meld of this, and what I kind of see is this balance of okay, so we are human beings and we are organic, and there are certain things about our soul. We have creativity, we have art, and we can sort of marry that up with the logical thinking of and the sort of connectivity of technology, and that will be the next stage of our sort of as a species, our evolution. So obviously we're in the digital evolution or revolution at the moment. Yeah. And I think we're on the sort of tail end of that now. And I think eventually we're going to end up growing into this sort of cybernetic sort of amalgamation of the two.
Absolutely. It's really interesting. I mean, our brains are so adaptive. Yeah. You know, and you look into topics such as brain plasticity and how that works, and we are the ultimate adaptable machine, aren't we? Yeah. As what we do, and I think you're right. We will evolve to somehow integrate with what technology is doing. Probably not physically, but to an extent where it's kind of working very well with each other and not working against each other. Because at the moment, productivity versus technology growth, productivity is actually on a decline because it takes time for us to process information, understand it, and then understand how to use it to be able to get the right outputs that we're doing. So there's this bit of stagnation at the moment which we're fighting against, which we will come to the end of. But even when you reflect on what we're talking about here, technology, it's all very fast paced, isn't it? It's all 100 miles per hour. It's all very, very complicated in some contexts. And I think that's where the biophilic side of things really helps balance that out. Okay. Because, we've discussed previously that we are in a constant state of distraction. And, you look around us, everything that's been created here has been created through a thought. And how do you get the right type of thoughts? You get the right type of thoughts in the right environment. Yeah. And it comes back to what is the right environment? Environment dictates performance. Absolutely. So even though absolutely technology will be going where it needs to go to, and it will constantly always kind of supersede itself. It's going to take a human mind to be able to do that.
And technology can't create.
It can only stimulate.
Yeah.
So there still needs to be this element of kind of going back to basic principles to help us ensure that we aren't just being reliant on what technology is telling us to do. We're actually the creativity and the cognitive side of a human being remains and is kind of protected, if you like.
Yeah.
So that's why I get really excited when, when I see the integration of biophilia within, just even if it's in your home, in whatever environment that you're in, there's a real big push now, with introducing it to all different types of, types of kind of real estate, whether it's retail, whether it's education.
Yeah, I mean, I've because whilst I was doing sort of like the research in terms of the background around the study that I just completed, one of the things I noticed was I read upon was this project that had taken place in the States, and what they did was they compared two different areas of retail spaces. So there was retail shops in an area that was low levels of biophilia, and they compared that to the retail area or the retail outlets within an area that had loads of trees and loads of greenery. And even though the greenery obscured the view of the shops and what they were selling, those shops that had higher degrees or value of biophilia around the immediate area perform better.
So people are spending more in those environments.
More in those environments.
Because of the experience, no doubt.
Mm-hmm.
You look at the areas around the world which have great parks or great, communal areas which are, where people are able to use and connect with nature. They have the lowest crime rates.
Oh wow!
It's a really interesting statistic. Education, those schools that have started to bring biophilia within that have seen an absolute increase in performance of their students, and kind of a decrease in poor student behaviour.
And it's really it's funny because like I hold kind of akin this or compare this whole area around performance and how we are in terms of what we're achieving within an organisation, whether it's a school or a business, to sort of Maslow's hierarchy of needs.
Absolutely, yeah.
And I think a lot of companies will get a consultant in and try and focus on the social environment. How can we fix these systems of hierarchy in terms of management processes and systems of how
very 20th century way of
focusing on the individuals within the company, and sometimes they don't actually look at the context around where are these people working. And I think the same thing with schools. Like the schools will, or the local education authorities, they will bring in new ways to assess the students, or they'll give different frameworks in terms of what the syllabus should be in terms of what they're teaching the students. But actually, let's start with the environment that they're learning in first.
Absolutely.
And then work backwards from there and see. And as you said, you once you get that right, then you've got more of a. It's almost like you've created more of a window to be more flexible with how you want to sort of structure your business or your organisation.
Absolutely. Hotels are another one. There's case studies there where people are willing to pay a bit more of a premium for that room, which has that connection to nature. And I think I would, to be honest. Yeah. If I had a really bog standard hotel room, completely white, bed, ensuite, does all the stuff that it says on the tin, happy days. But then I've got this alternative version which may have a fish tank in, which has really good material selection that feels as if it's kind of really organic. Does have kind of plantation within it, greenery, has an air purifier in there, has good water, then you know what? That's going to affect my health. Yeah. So actually, I'd rather pay a premium because health is priority. Yeah. And I think that's another cultural shift that we need to see as well, because at the moment, health is very reactive in terms of how people deal with it.
So true.
People think, oh, well, don't worry about it. Even though they know it's not going to be good for them at that immediate time, they know in the long term, it's going to have an adverse effect.
But don't worry about it.
Don't worry about it. But then by the time they get to how many years which have gone and they start to experience these issues, then everything becomes reactive, everything becomes expensive, everything becomes stressful. And there's a piece that I'm looking at the moment which focuses on, well, actually, how do you become proactive with people, with employees at the very, very start of their careers, which actually then doesn't just help the business because they start to perform better and they're a bit more efficient and they're a bit more productive, but actually, all of a sudden, insurance levels start to decrease, presenteeism starts to decrease, absenteeism starts to decrease, and you've got this whole different type of kind of value return from those kind of individuals.
I think the key, what you're talking about is it's a short-term outlook and a long-term outlook.
100%.
And I think the companies that have a more reactive or more sort of short-term outlook, okay, well, I spend, say, £20,000 on my environment, I'm expecting to see a 40 grand return within the next few months.
So our return on investment, it's a different model.
It is.
You know, you're not going to see a return on investment on creating a really great environment which is going to help the health of your employees within 2, 3, 4 years.
No, you're not.
But you're going to see that through actually sickness days being reducing, actually insurance premiums coming down.
Retention of talent, you know, and
we go back to the piece of globalisation. People can work anywhere in the world and still do their job. So what makes that particular employer or workspace that attractable for them to want to work in?
Yeah.
You know, and it's not about just giving, as we said, people money anymore. It's a wider piece. So, and that's where, you know, how just general space is thought about really has to kind of start to put the health topic as a priority, which hasn't previously been the case, to be honest.
Yeah.
And I think when you look at some of the statistics on disease over the last 50, 60 years, and you look at kind of, you know, some of the contributors to mental illness, stress being one of the worst, you know, workplace issues at the moment, according to the World Health Organization. All these things will only increase, really.
And the reason why I think they'll only increase is as we're becoming more technologically dependent, and our lifestyles and the way our society is structured removes all of these stressful problems, i.e. availability of food, shelter, etc. Our brain will only focus on the things that are causing us anxiety and stress, and if that's a working environment, whether that the physical space that you're working in isn't suitable, or the social environment that you're subjected to not benefiting or sort of having an adverse effect on you, I think the impact of that stress becomes magnified because your brain has got nothing else to worry about.
Absolutely. And then that starts to bleed into what you're doing outside of work. And that's why I'm quite passionate about, whether you call it work or however you use your time, bulk of your time during that day period. It's fundamental to either grab daylight, just get some fresh air. You know, the benefits of vitamin D on you naturally is quite profound, to be honest. And almost forcing your employees to go outside for 20 minutes, switch up, and just not eating in front of a screen, and little things like this, which really help reduce those kind of stress levels. And
I think what jumped out at me was so this fish tank was in this office for 4 months prior to the study, and it was part of the space, and people appreciate, it looks nice, and they're sort of like doing their day to day, but it was only actually mindfully interacting with it that we noticed the actual benefit from having that space. So I think there's also a conversation to be had about how we actually interact. There's a passive way of interacting with nature within the space.
Totally agree.
And that can have a nominal effect. I think the way you got to look at it is if you're going to take the approach of investing in biophilia, you've got to invest maybe in some cases quite heavily to create that initial or to create that larger impact. But actually, if companies don't necessarily have the funds to invest in huge aquariums or huge planting displays which need to be maintained, maybe it could be incumbent on the company to embed a culture within the staff to actually just sort of maybe just take 10 minutes not to look on your phone, to just spend some time doing some sort of, what I did introduce to them was focused meditation. So it was basically, instead of sort of trying to shut your mind away from everything, just focus on something beneficial.
And it's unbelievable how many people struggle to focus. And that's another issue that, you know, in the society we are tackling at the moment. You know, but I totally agree, Echo. You know, bringing that sort of headspace, but making them consciously aware of it is always the key task. And I think you're right. You know, if it doesn't come from the top of a corporation, then staff won't really take it seriously.
And this is where how this whole conversation on biophilia has to really embed within the culture of the company.
It's got to be seriously taken, to be honest, for it to make that impact. And it's not something that can just be hid in a corner and a box ticked anymore, because, you know, with some of the issues that we've spoken about in terms of just general population health, we can no longer ignore the positive effects that it actually has to people. So I just think, you know, there just needs to be more advocates of biophilia and more people as well to actually, you know, embrace it and actually take it forward. And you know, there needs to be properly first movers on this that really do. And there are businesses that are doing that. I
think what you have with any sort of trend or adoption of any sort of scheme or idea is you get the early adopters, don't you?
You do, yeah.
And I think you have to get enough early adopters to make the rest of the population think, oh, there's something here.
Yeah.
And let's have a look at that. And I think we're in that. Within, like you said, in the last 2 years, there's literally been an upswell on the focus on this whole area around well-being and biophilia. And I think we're kind of approaching that peak where it's going to tip over pretty much. I personally think within the next year or two, it's going to be just normal to have some sort of consultant or some sort of
platform or program, integrated within that,
within that sort of design piece of we create an office. Okay, so how can we make this office biophysically available to the people working in?
And I think it comes down to as well, which is really important. You know, if employee health, people's health is high on the agenda seriously for these, you know, for corporates or any type of business, then this doesn't also mean just kind of sending someone away on a medical and then forgetting about it for 2-3 years. How are you gonna sustain that consistently over a 12-month period? Because, for example, even if you created a really interesting biophilic environment, which the staff can use, there's a passive element, but I think it needs to be a little bit more than that from the employer, where there's that active engagement. And people, unfortunately, they embed bad habits, and they need to be unwired to an extent to be consciously aware that this is going to have a real benefit. And it takes time for that reoccurring kind of, you know, habit to unwind, for them to then build new habits, to actually say, well, actually, this 10 minutes a day, just enjoying a fish tank becomes normality.
There was something that Katie Buckingham from Altruist, she said at a talk, and I've never forgot it. And she was describing mental health within the same context as physical health.
Yeah.
Now, I know, for example, I've got a friend who used to work for Deloitte, and one of the things that Deloitte did was their employees had to literally bank a certain amount of time per month of physical activity.
Right.
And the whole thought process behind it was, if you're physically well and healthy, then you're better at your job, you're going to be better in life in general. And I think we're going through this sort of awareness now that actually mental health is the same as physical health, because if you're mentally unwell, that has a knock-on effect on your physiology.
Absolutely.
And obviously you get that negative feedback as well.
Absolutely.
Going backwards. So like, I actually think what we're talking about with regards to companies sort of actually actively encouraging and embedding this approach of how can we improve the mental well-being of the people working within our society, within our organisation, has really strong analogies with companies building gyms into their buildings.
Yeah,
because it's the same sort of thing. They're trying to encourage people.
They are, and you know, one of the things that, you know, we've been thinking about, and kind of something else that I've been working on is, you know, there's a stigma of just thinking about wellness gym. Not everyone likes using the gym.
Yeah.
You know, we don't all have to lift weights. We don't all have to go for a 5k run. We've just got to move. Or we can encourage people just to start to do basic movement during their working day without having to leave their environment if they don't want to.
Right.
To make it really convenient for them to just actually check in with themselves and say, well, actually, I've been inactive, and there's loads of all the wearables that are out there that do that and all the rest of it. But
so what does that look like from your perspective, like in terms of how do you sort of encourage people to keep moving?
So I think this comes through the kind of the employer or the business owner really kind of making the health culture priority, and that means there's a consistent checking through if it's a provider or an individual or of something who actively engage with the staff on a regular basis to encourage and remind them of the need to be able to move, etc., or eat correctly or get fresh air or etc., etc. So it
is
can
that
be
sort of like measuring some of their biometric.
I don't even think it needs to go that far.
Okay.
Yeah, I think where it could go once a platform like that is embedded within a business, you will get those that are really kind of benefiting from it, who will then want to take it to the next level. So it comes back to, again, environment, connection with nature, optimization of performance, and with technology going the way it is, people are going to be able to differentiate less from the next guy, less and less, because they've all got this super kind of technological platform that they can both stand from.
Right.
So actually, in the competitive world, what's the 1% now all of a sudden? So the 1% is actually you as a person. So how do you enhance that? So you enhance that through through various performance levels. That's through movement. That's the way you eat. That's the habits that you take on, which are all affected again by the environment that you're in. But naturally, with us as human beings, it needs constant reminding. So what it would look like is a potential fixed provider partnering up with a business owner or a corporate to enrol like a bit of a platform within the business to help the staff manage their own individual programs, because everyone will be along the line at different points. That's the way they are. You'll get the super athletes that do marathons. You'll get the people that just don't want to do anything.
Okay.
So you have to adapt it to suit everybody, really. So this is about encouragement, which I think is going to be really important as well.
I think going to what you were talking about, there was one of the theories I was looking at in the lead up to the study I did was attention restoration theory.
Yeah.
And that idea was that you can only focus for a fixed amount of time, and after a while, your productivity or your ability to concentrate and focus sort of tails off. And so if you had this sort of this platform that you're talking about, could almost encourage people to, like, before they fall off that cliff of attention or being able to cognitively focus, you can sort of like pep them up and say, well, here's one thing you can do. And I think if a company has kind of like what you're talking about, not everybody would want to do the same type of activity.
Absolutely.
So if you create a really diverse environment where there's different types of amenities or different ways for people to become more recharge their batteries effectively.
For me, it's about restoration.
Yeah.
It's about energy management.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's about offering relief to the day, to those various, chores and activities and distractions that we experience. You can create a space which harnesses all of those. Then you're giving your people the best opportunity to reach the maximum of their potential. Yeah. That can only benefit the wider business output and what's being.
I think as a society on the whole, I mean, it's a lot. You always hear about this whole thing. You carry your work home, don't you?
You do, absolutely.
And I've been in those scenarios where you're not happy at work, whatever's going on at work, sort of making you bring your anxiety levels up to here. They don't magically sort of drop off when you get back home. You're something's still there. So it's I think it's almost like outside of a performance enhancement piece for the company, I think actually maybe it's something that, like, you look at it in terms of from a legislative perspective. Yeah. How can the government actually sort of take a look at this whole area around biophilia and human and mental health and well-being within the workspace? Yeah. What are the potential sociological impacts of improving the way people experience their day-to-day? at work.
I think that's a great point. I think, you know, the higher and higher up it kind of, you know, gets kind of cascaded from, the more impetus it has for those types of corporations to enrol it, you know, within their kind of businesses. And it's like anything, you know, until someone's telling you sometimes you've got to do this, it's only that point that you do it. And hopefully it shouldn't get to that point, but it may need that support.
I think so.
You know, to really, from a macro perspective, take it really seriously.
Well, let's look at previous case studies that the government's been involved in. So the whole 5-a-day initiative. Yeah. So that would have started off initially with a few early adopters within society and business and the whole, recognising this connection between how much fruit and veg we're eating during the day and the overall health and well-being of people throughout society. Yeah. After a while, enough advocates spoke about this whole subject and this particular topic, and then the government thought, oh, okay, we've got something here that we could actually just improve society with, and they sort of embedded it. It wasn't necessarily a law, but they quite cleverly made it culture. It's just like I remember growing up, 5-a-day wasn't even something that you sort of, it wasn't something that was like in your nomenclature, into the language that we used to say, but now it's like, my son, for example, growing up, 5-a-day was normal to him.
Absolutely.
And it's been embedded in the culture. And also as well, just if you look at our attitude to smoking. So years and years ago, you couldn't, in most public places that you'd go to, you'd have to put up with people having a cigarette.
Absolutely.
You'd rather actually sit outside, have your meal outside, because, you know, especially during the winter, you know, you're going to be sort of smoked out in the restaurant or bar. And eventually, enough people advocated around the issues around passive smoking, the early adopters, and then eventually, the government listened. Oh, there's an issue here, how we can improve society. And now you can't smoke indoors now. And now it's and it's like, for me, this whole area around biophilia and mental well-being, and just encouraging companies to sort of prioritise how people feel and operate within their workspace, really is kind of like a low-hanging fruit for the government.
Absolutely.
It wouldn't take a huge amount of investment for the government to just kind of like put a few guidelines.
It's already happening in parts, isn't it? They just need to probably, you know, it's that little bit of weight potentially that it needs just to really kind of move it.
But I think if there's enough data, there's enough research, enough advocates talking about this topic and showing the actual benefits of it, then eventually I personally see it being...
Absolutely. I mean, in the built environment, you know, there's the wellness standard, which obviously, you know, came into force, I think, in 2013 by Delos. I might be wrong on the year. But that, again, it taps into, you know, 14 key factors of biophilia, really.
The well standards?
It's the well standards, and, you know, I'll be honest, when it first came on board, I was quite sceptical about it. You know, I was thinking, oh, bloody hell, this is going to cost more money. How are we going to, you know, afford the investment? Where are we going to get the return on the investment, etc., etc. But now, and maybe because it was so early then, and it's taken the last 3.5, 4 years to start to really appreciate, you know, what it could do. And, you know, it's certainly now turning our heads from a development world perspective and say, you know what, this is pretty important, actually. It's really important. And more so speaking to like the occupiers of the buildings who it really does impact. You know, those that are employing 2,000-3,000 people. You start to then really, you know, acknowledge the fact that, well, yes, you know, we do need to design now for wellness. We need to design for health properly, and it can not any longer look or just kind of be a cost discussion. This is long term now, so this has to be embedded somehow within our first principles when moving things forward. So yeah, I think it's a really you know, it's a really diverse subject, and you can apply it in very, you know, varying platforms, industries, etc. And one of the things I'll be quite interested to see is how other industries are looking at biophilia, because I'm sometimes can be stuck in the real estate property world. But it'd be really good to see how other industries such as education, hospitals, what they're doing as well, because obviously there will be a net benefit for them as well.
Well, tell me from sort of talking that term, but I think like there's a bit of a cultural sort of divide between the East and West, because from East, I mean, I haven't seen a huge amount of Asia in the Far East, but from what I've seen sort of pictographically and online and stuff, that they seem to have a more of a entrenched embedment of nature within how they design their architecture and how they just sort of lay out and design their interior spaces. Whereas I think the West are still on that way of maybe, I think we're more aware of it now, but I still think that the West still look at it as a cost against investment kind of issue. And naturally, I would say it's always easier to embed nature at the sort of design and build stage rather than trying to sort of retrofit it into a pre-existing building.
Absolutely.
And I think we were almost, in the West, almost guilty of the success of previous generations where we've already built up our environment. We've gone through that industrial revolution and that technological revolution. And we're kind of, whereas we're kind of going through a phase now where we're knocking things down and building them back up.
Yeah, absolutely.
Whereas in the Far East, a lot of these emerging economies, for example, they've kind of got the insight of the lessons that we've learned from our previous.
Absolutely.
And they're kind of building their infrastructure around this whole area. So like I remember when you were doing your talk, you put up a picture of Copenhagen, I think it was, or Amsterdam, and you was talking about the way they'd structured the streets and the squares and the way they laid it out. And then you threw up a picture of I think it was Seoul or Singapore.
Might have been, both of them were up. Yeah.
And the two things that jumped out to me was, first, one looks a lot more greener.
Yeah.
And two, one seems to just sort of have more of a natural flow to it in terms of the types of the way they integrate nature into the buildings.
Yeah.
And I think we've literally got to sort of unpick the legacy of how we've designed, like you said, Birmingham, for example, was designed initially to just let cars, allow cars to come and go in terms of transport links. Whereas now we're trying to sort of revert back to a more of a human-focused and pedestrianised approach to getting people, linking people to different areas and to each other. And I think what we need to actually do is maybe look at what they're doing in those developing emerging economies, because they've almost got like a blank canvas to paint their nature.
Absolutely, and I think it's cultural as well. You know, it's you look at the heritage in the Far East. Whether it's Japanese or Chinese, everything goes back. Even if you go 20, 30,000 years, everything is on the basis of them working and being in complete harmony with nature. Whereas we have come from on a Western world, it's all been hard built, hard built environment. So it is a whole translation piece as well. I'm bringing that kind of that thought process into a very fixed and kind of opinionated society, which, because things were done a particular way, will continue to do a particular way. And I think they're the blocks that we, as the next generation and the generations beneath us, need to start bringing through, really. And it's going to take advocates of it, and it's going to take people really talking about it passionately, really, to make people's heads turn. And I think it will get there. It will get there. And I think the earlier we can embed the importance of this, and when I say that, it's more from an educational perspective as well, through kids that are coming through primary school, because that's where we need to start introducing all this. Sometimes if you introduce things too late, it is too late, and the kind of opportunity is missed. So one of the things that I'm going to start looking into really is just understanding, what from a curriculum perspective is kind of being incorporated to help even teachers and students of a very young age appreciate the importance of the integration of nature. Well,
it's funny you say that. So we've got a life gallery event coming up at the end of March. And part of that gallery will have about 15, 16 aquarium displays in this very room, actually.
Awesome.
In this building. And a lot of these displays will be will be showcased from sort of we doing like maybe do a podcast. I'll do this like an aquascape for the guest, and then I take it back to their office. But some of those tanks didn't necessarily end up at the person's office for whatever reason.
Yeah.
It was a bit busy, or it didn't really fit in with whatever they were doing, schedule wise. So I'll be looking to actually donate some tanks to some educational institutions.
Fantastic.
Kind of like in line with what you're talking about, because I think we've got to, if enough of us make these type of gestures,
absolutely,
and it won't be a case of we'll put a tank into the school and just sort of, well, there you go. We'll educate the people within the school and show them how to look after the tank, how to look after the fish, and encourage that degree of empathy.
That's amazing. So I do. I'm the enterprise advisor for the Jewellery Quarter Academy and help them support on their careers program.
Okay.
Quite a tough area, Ladywood as a ward, quite deprived. And the school's been doing some fantastic work on really transforming, the aspirations of that school and their students.
Right.
And it'd be great to have a conversation to see whether one of those could go maybe into the JQA, because I think, as you say, that whole educational piece, I think they'd really benefit from.
That's how we change culture, isn't it?
Absolutely.
You make that impact on the children, and they grow up, and it's normal to them.
Well, who are going to be the future of the city, really?
This
so, and that's why it's so important for everybody who are kind of really interested and advocating this particular topic, because they know what the real benefit is in the long term. Everyone just needs to put that little bit of time into the younger generation to make sure that the next wave isn't just a few people. It's actually quite a big force really that are going to come into the kind of into the economy to move things forward really. So the inspiration is really important.
It is
really, really important. So yeah.
I'll be good for that. Right. So, as with every podcast we do,
this is exciting.
This is my moment to shine. So I'm gonna get the bits and pieces together.
Okay.
And I'll aquascape this aquarium, which will be sitting on your desk.
Wicked.
In about a couple of weeks' time. All right.
Fantastic. Really appreciate it.
Cool. Okay. So we have. So we've got one of our small desktop aquariums here, 30 centimetre cube.
Awesome.
And we've got 3 species of plants. We've got Hygrophila, which is a red version. We've got Echinodorus tenalis. So it looks really small at the moment, but when it grows out, it quite
right.
long,
Okay.
strands.
And would that grow up the tank eventually, or does it have the ability to do that, or would it go around the larva more, or?
No, it will pretty much grow off the substrate. So we'll put I'll put some soil in, and then we'll plant it directly into the soil. I wanted to go for quite a almost like a pride rock. That was this.
I like that. Yeah, I can see the inspiration there actually.
So I created like a large overhang here, and I'll just put some soil in between these negative spaces here, and then plant those up with the different plants. So this will go in the background because this can go to about 20 centimeters tall. So
vertically.
So
Wow. Okay.
We'll put it here, and it'll grow up to about here. Sort of fill out the back area.
Right.
Here.
Okay.
And then this is Liliopsis. This is from Tropica 1-2 Grow.
Yeah.
And then this will be sort of planted around the front area. So we've got like a front area plant, mid area plant, and a background plant. And when it grows in, you'll eventually see this sort of like this carpet.
Oh wow!
From back to front.
Okay.
That's the idea.
Fantastic.
Hopefully it works. So we've got. I'll start off with.
So is that a particular type of water, or?
This is just tap water.
Oh right! Wow. Okay.
So I'll put some dechlorinator in to remove the. It kind of sort of like neutralises the chlorine. That it puts in the water.
Sure.
But what I'm doing is I put water on the base of the tank before I put the soil in, so that it doesn't dry out whilst I'm working, because this light will dry out the soil pretty quickly. And you want to plant these plants into, obviously they're coming from a wet.
Yeah. Okay.
Part there is quite wet. If you touch them, put your finger at the bottom of it.
Okay.
It's like a jelly material.
Right.
That's what keeps them in these pots for as long as.
Oh right. Okay.
You need to.
Fantastic. So the soil itself, then again, specialist type of soil, presumably?
Yeah, so this is, this particular batch I've got here was from an old tank, which is really good because it's got all the minerals and the different mixture of composite materials in here. So you've got your normal aquatic soil here.
Cool.
And then you have these sort of lava rock stones, and what they do is they just sort of stop the compaction too much and allow the oxygen from the water column to actually sort of circulate through the gravel. So I'm going to add these to the back to bank it up.
Such a cool project, isn't it? Like, I bet you've done this so many times. How many times have you done this with your kids?
I think my son's set up about 2.
Has he? Wow, that's amazing.
He's actually set up quite a few actually, because when I first was sort of growing the business and I was sort of just on my own.
Yeah.
Especially like on weekends, I'd take him with me on the project. So like, especially like on the ponds, he loves doing ponds. And yeah, he'd kind of get involved. And
fantastic.
But he's 7 now, and one of the things I'm definitely sort of looking at getting him more involved in what I do here, because he's quite a creative like me.
Yeah.
He's also got he's very hyperactive like I was as well, so you kind of need to channel him into into different activities.
For sure.
So at the moment, my son Ira, he's big on gymnastics and football.
Oh, amazing.
And he's learning to play the drums. That's kind of like the activity that we do outside of his school.
Yeah, gymnastics. I know that you can have a better foundation, really, from a physical perspective.
100%.
You know, you can't compete with that.
And it's funny because, like, at first when he first started, because he started football first.
Yeah.
And I remember when we told the football coaches, "Oh, we're going to put me to gymnastics," so I was like, "Yeah, 100%, go for it."
Yeah.
Like today in the night,
it's the natural. It's the calisthenics side of it, and then the flexibility side. It's just like you've got
strength, balance,
and that'll be embedded with him forever.
You know, you can't lose that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So tell me about you then. So I imagine that you didn't sort of start off as a project manager.
No. It's a funny old story, to be honest. I'm Birmingham born and bred, as you know, similar to yourself, and I don't know. Education wasn't for me. I've always been quite hands-on. And I did kind of the usual school stuff. Kind of went to primary school. I did my 11 plus and went to grammar school and all that type of stuff, which was all kind of, you know, at the time, probably didn't enjoy doing the 11 plus tuition at all, really. Resented it. But looking back, you know, was kind of quite, you know, kind of fortunate to have been able to go to the school that I went to, because I made some really great friends from there. King Edward's Aston, yeah. Okay. And kind of, I suppose when you're back at that age, you're not really kind of given that overly, you know, that much direction. And I was into the normal teenage stuff. Football was life, basically. So I played at a decent level. And then from 16, did okay my GCSEs actually, but then after that it was like, right, it's all about football. Started to get introduced into kind of, you know, the whole social life and going out and all that type of thing, and I suppose lost interest in the educational side. And even though I did my A-levels and probably didn't do very well at my A-levels, I probably see it now looking back, probably just wasted 2 years really. I sort of just came out after my GCSEs. But I always knew when I was at school I wanted to get into work. I wanted to start to earn money as quickly as possible, really. And
did you know what you wanted to do?
No, absolutely not. It was kind of, I was always in the mindset of kind of some sort of engineering, civil engineering. But, you know, being open and honest, when you're at school, looking back, the careers advice wasn't great. No. You know, weren't really given the opportunity to explore different ways of kind of making it, you know. Whether it was
I'm surprised, because I mean, like, I would have thought at a grammar school
Yeah, it was. Well, I think one of the things that I found was it was very traditional in terms of you get your A-levels and you go to university, you get a degree, and it was like that was the only route. Yeah. When obviously when you look at what would have been achievable is completely different through apprenticeships.
I think that's kind of like a change of culture.
It is, yeah.
I think the whole education system is a lot more open to more vocation and different pathways to.
Do you know what? I think, you know, absolutely, and that's the route that I eventually came on. So I went onto the tools. So I started off on like physical tools, groundworking, digging foundations, learning proper hard graft, really, you know. And I used to love it and enjoy it. And
so you started out on site?
On site, yeah, okay. 4.5 years, and kind of burnt my trade and kind of domestic electrics and.
So what was your first trade?
So it was on the kind of electrics and gas side internally. But when you work for a small building outfit, you're not just doing that. You're doing the carpentry, you're doing the flooring, you're doing the roof, you're doing the digging. So it was a bit of a mix of everything, to be honest, which was great because you know, it really did help me understand what hard work really is. But I kind of knew at that point that I didn't really want to do this forever, so I started to look at, well, what type of avenues are there to get into more commercial building, commercial construction. Right. And long story short, I was able to kind of move into like a construction management apprenticeship. So my education actually, because when I found something that I was quite passionate about, that I enjoyed doing, all of a sudden the learning side of it became really easy. Okay. Because you could connect to it. Right. Because I was learning and applying in parallel, it makes that whole process a lot smoother as well, to be honest. And you're not just learning, being taught something which you don't necessarily enjoy and you don't really necessarily understand how it's going to help you in the future. Found my thing, yeah, absolutely. What I thought was my thing. My thing now is very health, well-being kind of focused. Yeah. But yeah, and really just kind of embraced education. So I did all my education like part-time, HNC and degree and masters and everything.
I think the key there was like you knew why you was doing it.
Absolutely.
And for the most part, I think young people, especially I'm definitely sort of like a subject of that. Like you go for your whole education, you do it because you know that's what you have to do.
What's the purpose of it?
Yeah. You don't really know why you wanted to do it. I mean, my whole thing was like I was just fascinated in fish, but I didn't at the age of 16 know that I was going to be an aquarium designer. You sort of just fall into it, and then it evolves, aren't you?
Oh, massive.
You become exposed to certain environments or certain issues or certain topics, and then that kind of whatever captures your imagination then becomes this thing that
100%.
You become passionate about and you focus on that. So.
I mean, I remember when I was properly not enjoying digging foundations when it was been peeing it down with rain, and all I'm being told is, right, you just keep on digging until we hit clay. Okay. And I think back to that moment, and then I think like now what I'm doing on Paradise, it's like, wow, like how did I get here kind of thing. It's quite nice to sometimes just kind of reflect really on the journey that you go through to get to where you currently are, and I'm sure it's very similar for you really in terms of those early years. I'm being fascinated by fish now, doing what you're doing, you know, and creating some really amazing, you know, piece of art, really, you know.
That's the really thing. I never saw myself
and combining that with your passion with, you know, with aquatics. It's amazing.
Yeah, I never saw myself as an artist.
It
was never sort of. I was never that person who was drawing an art or was creating like these amazing pieces. Yeah. I think I only discovered this sort of creativity maybe in my mid-20s.
Wow. Okay.
When I sort of started doing sort of larger schemes, and I was like, actually, this isn't just something that just looks nice. There's an expression, there's thought behind creating something that has like a visceral attachment to someone, has a philosophical meaning to it. And to me, that's what art is. It's an expression of philosophy and ideas.
Absolutely.
And that's how this sort of whole thing around nature is art sort of come from. This is like a medium of expressing yourself. I'll just play with water and sand and rocks and wood, but other people use clay, some people use metal.
For sure.
And you play around with environments.
Absolutely,
an expressive idea.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've always been fascinated really to understand how you structure an aquarium, and I think seeing this today is quite brilliant. There's a lot more to it than I anticipated.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, as far as aquascapes go, which is what we call this sort of when you lay out an aquarium, this is really simple.
Is it? Okay.
This isn't. I'll try to. You see, this is a funny thing. You see, I don't really. There are people who are. Like they spend their day-to-day, that's their life, is creating aquascapes. Like some of the guys that work for me, it's not just their hobby, it's them. I kind of see myself as more of a curator, so as well as focusing on what goes in the tank, I have to be aware of what goes outside the tank, the people that the tank, the environment and the people that the tank sort of sitting within.
Sure.
And all the equipment that needs to go into it and how it sort of fits within the space architecturally as well as from an interior design perspective. But this is a bit where I can kind of just, I enjoy doing this.
Yeah.
I can just forget, I can be.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And that's why I think it's, it's such a great activity to do. What comes into my head is children and students who have got behavioural issues.
Right, okay.
And, it's such a good way of helping them channel, those types of those types of matters that they have to deal with more in a school environment, to help them basically just kind of reconnect with something that they enjoy.
So is that one of the you mentioned earlier that you're part of like
Enterprise Advisor, yeah. So I think one of the things that I want to try and really help Jewellery Quarter Academy with is not only open doors to industry to help their students with their career aspirations, but also, and I haven't brought it up with them yet, but also start to understand how we can start to mould their environment as well. Because when you go into it, it's quite it's quite a difficult building because of its kind of historical use. So it's like, well, how do we make best use of that particular form and structure?
Right.
And how can we introduce pockets of opportunity which start to then support the students' learning through biophilic design, for example, and how do we start to integrate that? So that's a whole different kind of piece which I'll be kind of picking up with them probably in the next kind of 6 to 8 months. But I just think the effect on students it'd be absolutely profound, to be honest. I think a lot of the kids would appreciate it, and I think it'll help them appreciate them to also look after their school environment as well and actually treat it with respect, which a lot of students struggle to do, to be honest.
There was another, going back to what I was mentioning earlier around biophilia and the environment. There was during my research when I was writing up the study, I came across this piece around areas that had higher counts of biophilia or features of biophilia had lower antisocial behaviour.
Makes sense.
Environment dictates performance.
Absolutely, couldn't agree more. I couldn't agree more. So yeah, the more and more this type of kind of project or medium or whatever is introduced into those kind of environments, I think it will only have a positive effect, really.
Yeah, I'd be more than happy to come into the school.
That'd be awesome. I think we
maybe
could
do like a workshop.
That'd be awesome. Yeah.
Get a couple of kids to set up a couple of tanks, maybe.
Yeah.
And just set it in the classroom.
Yeah.
To look after it and just sort of see how that impacts.
Absolutely. So what are you doing here then? You're obviously cutting.
We've got like a few hundred or maybe a couple of thousand individual strands of plants in here.
Right.
And this is the Liliopsis. So what I'm doing is I'm just sort of teasing apart because they send out runners, and that's how they sort of intake. This is going to be like a war zone at the moment because they're all going to be vying for territory and space.
Right. Okay.
So what they do to sort of like dominate their areas, they send out runners, and then the runners will sort of run along an area of sort of soil or substrate, and then they'll send the leaves up.
Right.
So what this particular this colony effectively has done is kind of within the pot send those runners, and they've kind of intersected over each other. So I'm just going to tease them out so I can plant them individually, but into small clumps into the soil, just to sort of spread them out. So because we don't just want one little turf like that. We just want eventually the whole front of it to sort of look like this. But the best way to do that is actually to give them some space to sort of feel out.
So how long would that take to grow to cover that amount of area?
Depending on...
Are they quite aggressive or...?
Yeah, they can grow quite quickly actually. I mean, this plant is actually in the tank we did the study with, and I think it took about 4 months for it to form a complete carpet over the front section. So it does go when you create the right environment, the right conditions, i.e. strong lighting, some fertilization, so you can put like extra liquid iron supplements or potassium supplements into the water, and CO2, carbon dioxide.
Of course,
That's the key. So you get pressurized carbon dioxide, and you create this sort of like an air stone.
Right.
And it periodically just saturates the water concentration with carbon dioxide.
Right, okay.
And then what happens is the plants, via photosynthesis, use the light, turn that carbon dioxide into sugar and a medium for growth.
Interesting. Fascinating.
So normally plants on land, as in terrestrial plants, carbon dioxide is not a limiting factor because you're exposed to it in the air. But underwater, it is a limiting factor.
Yeah, okay.
So underwater, carbon dioxide becomes a limiting factor because it's not as abundant as it is in open air. So in the wild, what we do in aquariums is kind of accelerate what happens in the wild.
Yeah.
So we can accelerate their growth by...
And for example, that light, does that have to be constantly on?
No, so you'd have that on for maybe 8 to 10 hours a day.
Okay.
It's like us,
of course, yeah. And where do you tend to get your inspiration from for the design of the aquariums then? Are you always looking around, out, I don't know, I mean, how does that work?
I think there's 3 sources of inspirations for me. So the first source would be, for example, if I'm working on a project for a company, I would look at their brand.
Yeah, okay.
And kind of pick out some key themes of who they are as a company, what their vision is for their ongoing growth, or maybe the clients that they deal with, or who they are as a culture. And I'll use that sometimes as the basis behind the design. Sometimes I'll use just things that I've seen out in the world, like nature, and I'll use maybe landscapes or forestry areas, or I don't know, just like an area of wild, of nature that I've seen, and I'll use that as like the sort of like the basis behind the layout. And sometimes it's about experiences.
Okay. So
things that I've seen socially.
Cool.
I'll use that as a sort of like an anchor for the design. One of my favourite pieces that I did last year, which is actually the first episode within the Nature of Art series, which is on our YouTube channel. I based this whole design around the Remembrance Day period, and I created this sort of barren landscape within the aquarium, just rocks and dirty sand and soil, and I just put one red fish as to kind of symbolise the forgotten soldiers of the First and Second World War.
Sure.
And for me, it's really funny because I wanted to do something about Remembrance Day, but it kind of evolved as I was sort of creating the piece. But this is what we were talking about, being when you're in that state.
It's unbelievable what starts to spark off in your mind. Absolutely.
Because I'd created the scape and I was like, I didn't really know what fish to put in there.
Got you.
And then I found the fish and I was like, that's it.
Yeah. Okay.
And then that was my artistic expression of an experience.
Of course. Fascinating.
So at the moment, I'm just doing a tank design for interface.
Okay.
So that one's going to be what I've looked at doing was obviously Oliver Heath's quite big on his biophilia.
Yeah.
He's one of the biggest advocates for it, and he does a lot of work with interface.
Oh, okay.
So one of the things I noticed, I see a lot of pictures of forests and rainforests in their sort of marketing literature and so forth. So the idea, the concept that I've come up with is kind of like a tropical rainforest.
Nice.
Really heavily, densely planted sort of scene with these bright blue fish, which kind of matches up with their branding, with their logo. And that will be the sort of the design of...
Is that quite a large tank, that one? Or?
Yeah, I think it's going to be a 90 centimetre long tank.
Right, okay.
So what we'll do is we'll showcase it here at the Life Gallery first, so people can see it.
Sure.
We'll sort of put interface. This is the interface aquarium, and then eventually we'll probably go to their office in Birmingham. So
amazing.
Oh yeah. So it's pretty nice.
You're being quite delicate on how you're placing these in, I'm noticing.
Yeah.
I thought it was literally hand job, and then.
Well, the thing
is there a reason for why you have to use the utensil? Or?
Yeah. So if you push them in with your hands, what tends to happen is that as your hand comes out, the substrate sort of loosens around it.
Oh, okay.
Whereas when you use tweezers, what the tweezers do is you can sort of slowly release it, and then it acts as like the substrate around it sort of just holds the root ball around the plant. This is what I was talking about. So you see how it just sort of sends out runners?
Yeah. So what's on the horizon then for ViDERE aquariums then for 2020?
So we've got
what's on your radar?
Well, we've got a big life gallery event.
That's exciting.
I'm kind of chomping at the bit about that.
It's going to be brilliant. And how are you marketing that as well, or
so we've been really lucky actually. So it kind of worked out quite strategically advantageous because we sponsored the BAA, which is the Birmingham Architectural Association. So we kind of well networked within that architect sort of A&D design scene network in the local area. We have a really good PR company as well.
Okay.
That we've worked. They helped us promote the first one, and they've got a really good network of individuals.
Cool.
Or professionals within sort of the local business area and the A&D area. We're a registered CPD provider of the SBID, which is the Society of British and International Design, and they're like a governing body for interior designers in the UK. And so I'll be delivering a CPD on the event. So I'm gonna get that whole crowd turning up to the event. And then we've just signed up with the Birmingham Chamber of Commerce as well.
Oh, great.
So a lot of the local, so they will kind of promote this to local business. So I think I've kind of tried to create several spinning plates.
Yeah, absolutely. Bit of a cool ecosystem hopefully that should gather on the day or over the few days.
And that was a really good as well. I wanted to get a nice mix of different industries and sectors to sort of just come and experience this whole world of biophilia and sort of my take on it.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's brilliant.
I'm obscuring a view. No worries. This is the fiddly part now.
I know, yeah. How long will this sort of a tank, if it's maintained properly, last for?
As long as.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
It's one of the things I find fascinating about plants. They're kind of immortal, aren't they?
They are. You're right. You're absolutely right. Because if
one individual dies,
as long as you're giving them the right conditions, absolutely.
They don't die, do they? Really? They just grow and constantly grow. I mean, that's the fascination with within this sort of area of aquariums. That's one of the biggest fascinations with plants. It's this constant renewal, of growth. I think it has a kind of a spiritual connection for a lot of us. And
I think that's what most people really want in life as well. You know, it's not what they get. It's about what they can be and what they can grow to be. And I think that's an underlying foundation of nature, isn't it?
It's a really good way of looking at it.
So but it all comes down to, as I said, being given the right conditions to be able to thrive.
And it goes with the plants.
Absolutely, which is really important. Have you been in a position before where you've done a whole aquascape and you've just not been happy with it? And you've just deconstructed it completely, or?
In my early days.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I think what it was when I first started because at first I was just sort of build a fish tank.
Yeah.
And then I sort of part way through that journey, you sort of look at your peers and what the other people in the industry are doing, and you sort of discover this whole world of aquascaping.
Yeah.
And the biggest sort of influence, there was two big influences. The first one was he's passed away now. This person called Takeshi Amano, he's a Japanese man, and he kind of introduced this whole philosophy of using analogues or forms of nature to shape the interior and the space within the tank. And a lot of the principles and I want to say the architecture that he built this approach to, which is what we call aquascaping, was based around Japanese gardening. So, for example, with here we've got a large sort of rock form that sort of focuses a lot of the attention, It's almost like the focal point of the energy within the space, and this is referred to as the father stone.
Right. Okay.
And then the second stone, which is called the mother stone, which is always sort of secondary to the father stone, and the father stone should, in terms of its flow, the way it's structured, sort of flow will lead into this secondary stone. And then normally what you would have is our smaller pieces within that space, and that's what we refer to as iwagumi, which is Japanese gardening.
That's interesting.
So I've done a sort of like a pseudo version of that because I've only got 2 main rock forms, but the idea is once these plants grow, they will kind of obscure a lot of the edges of this, and you'll just sort of see the main parts of it.
I love the Japanese culture.
Yeah.
I think it's quite fascinating. They do this thing, I think it's called, is it Ikipeiba?
Okay.
And it's basically a celebration of an almost kind of type of, it's not, I hate using the terminology flower arranging, but it's much more than that, and it means so much more, but at the same time it's very, very beautiful on how it's kind of presented. And it's very similar to what you're doing here, but on a plant form perspective. I'll have to show you a link to it because I think you'd appreciate it.
What do you call it?
I think it's called Ikipeiba.
Okay.
And I might be pronouncing that incorrectly, and I apologise if I am, but I can see you doing something with that, which could be quite cool. I'll send you over some ideas in terms of what it looks like, but yeah, I think
I'm quite fascinated with Japanese culture.
I think it's fantastic. Yeah, it's
outside
great.
of their amazing ability to create the best cartoons in the world.
Yeah, absolutely.
I've always been fascinated with their philosophy, their samurai-based philosophy.
Yeah, okay.
And it all goes back to the desire to do something at its very highest level. All has to be perfection.
Absolutely.
And they're almost like sort of crazy about
perfectionism, isn't it?
Perfectionism. Something needs, and it's all the whole ceremony around just doing the simplest things like pouring a cup of tea and so how they design their space. For me, like I'm if I could be Japanese, if I could be born a Japanese, then I think their culture.
I'd love to go and visit. I really would. One day, I definitely will.
Well, I was in 2 minds actually, fun because we're going to Hong Kong in a couple of weeks.
You've been before?
No, it's my first time.
Fantastic.
I have somewhere to go because.
Are you on the island?
Yeah, we're actually on the island.
Okay. So I wasn't on the island. I was on. I can't remember the area that it's called now. Bloody hell, what's it called? But anyway, it's dead easy on the ferry just to go backwards and forwards off the island itself. But yeah, we actually loved it. Yeah, it's got everything.
Yeah, I was in 2 minds to sort of take a little diversion trip to Japan.
Yeah, okay.
Obviously we're in the area, but I mean.
Is that with the family as well then?
No, with Rev.
No way! How have you managed to get that one out then?
So we
That's brilliant.
So we got commissioned for a really large project just north of London, and because of the nature of the client and the size of the tank and some of the design specs that we had to integrate into it because of the environment that it's in, I kind of insisted for the manufacturer to sort of take us out there so we could look at it before it gets shipped over to here.
So there's a tank already in Hong Kong?
Yeah, so the tank got built in Shanghai and then got sent to Hong Kong where their head office is. So we're going to go to Hong Kong, inspect the tank. We'll probably do a podcast with the guy that was liaising with and helping me sort of working with me on the designs for the tank. And then we'll see a bit of Hong Kong. We'll be there for about 4 days and then we'll fly back. So it'll be like more of a short business trip. But
fantastic.
I'm really looking forward to it.
It's going to be a great experience.
I know you want to like it, Rev? Yeah, he's nodding. He's like,
yeah. Fantastic experience.
But yeah, I'll have to pick your brain out where to go because I mean we've got like a few ideas of like
definitely
a few spots to what. Yeah, it's all new to us.
Really. You can do it all. You're there for a good period of time as well.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, it's just a great place, great food, lots of life. When are you going?
So we're going out second week of Feb.
Oh, okay. So I'm not sure what the weather would be like around Feb. When we went, it was really humid, but I think we were towards summertime, so I'm not sure what the climate would be like at that time of year. But we did Bali as well. So
you sort of made a trip just to...
It's quite a way out, isn't it? So we just thought it makes sense to try and double something up with it. So and
was it on a family trip or where?
That's a family trip.
Okay.
Yeah,
I mean, if you
I say family, it was just me and Tara. So
okay.
So it was quite easily manageable.
So you've got a son.
Little daughter, 18-month-year-old, 20-month-year-old now actually, Tula. Yeah, she's great. She's great. She's a little cheeky bean and just a ball of energy, really. Yeah. She, we call her the boss baby because she's just, yeah.
You know what?
How is she so strong-minded at that age? I will not know. It's crazy.
I've got a son and a daughter. My son came first, and like, for the most part, he's kind of like a carbon copy of me. He's quite laid back.
Yeah.
He's a boy, so he's very energetic.
Yeah.
But my daughter, like, she's literally like, in her head, you got a hierarchy within the house. So in my daughter's head, it's like my wife, her, me, and then my son, yeah.
Wow.
So I know exactly what I mean about little girls. They're so strong-minded, aren't they?
Honestly, and she's a Taurus, which doesn't help. And she's very stubborn, but she's the most adorable little thing as well. So she knows how to work everyone very well. She's very clever.
I read this caption on online on Instagram, and it's really stuck with me. They said sons are like what men always want, but daughters make men be better men.
Yeah.
So
I see that.
And she really does. I mean, she really does sort of make me think about things when she's like, because she will read at 5 years old. She's so analytical, and she understands the world around us. It's quite a.
You think back to yourself thinking, I was never like this at 5.
No, never. But when you have a son as well, I think it's so easy to sort of like draw that comparison how boys develop differently to girls. I mean, like girls are so like emotionally aware.
Yeah, they're on it, aren't
such a
they?
young age,
Yeah.
and that really threw me because I didn't really sort of foresee that when she was younger.
Yeah. And how do they get on with each other? Are they okay or?
Well, they love each other to bits, but as you can imagine, they fight
typical
like,
brother and sister relationship.
They fight like cat and dogs.
Yeah.
Most of the times, But what I do like actually when I if one of them gets told off, the other one's like pretty much, well, initially they'll laugh because they'll find it quite funny that their brother or sister got into trouble. But then after if they see that they're proper upset,
they'll console them.
Yeah, and she's like,
okay.
So it's okay, Ira, it's okay. Daddy's
nice.
mean. They sort of like go against me.
Oh, brilliant.
But yeah, they love it, man.
Have you got any holidays planned with the family this year then? Or?
Yeah, so amongst the madness of my itinerary work-wise, I really want to go to Dubai, you know. I really want to. It's been sort of like.
I was really sceptical about it. I didn't want to go. Tara's auntie has been quite a few times, and she's always said to us, "Like, you've got to go. You've got to go. You'll love it." And I said, "You know what? I'm just going to do it and just experience it." When we were just two of us, we usually tended to do a bit of a multi visit. So we wouldn't just do one place. We try and join it up with somewhere else. So we did Dubai and we did Jordan as well. So we did Petra, which was great. And I really recommend that if you have the opportunity to do that.
To it, Jordan.
Jordan, yeah, it's only 3-4 hours away.
Okay.
But Dubai was cool. It was cool. Very artificial as a city, as you can imagine, and how it's been built up over the last 25 years from a complete desert. But it's so extreme.
Is it?
It's just like, wow, this is just completely different world.
So I kind of perceive the nature today to be quite a different type of beauty to maybe what we're used to experiencing. I remember talking to Matt Hall from an earlier podcast, and he kind of like appreciated what we had here in the UK because it's very green, isn't it?
Very green. You won't see trees. Well, I didn't see any trees when I was there. A lot of desert.
So how did they incorporate biophilia, or did they?
I don't. To be fair, at that time when I went, I was probably not really into it as much, so I wasn't taking much notice.
Right. Okay.
But when I do reflect, I don't recall seeing much apart from the various types of kind of trees that exist in that type of environment, which were far and few between.
Really?
And it's just, I mean, I did enjoy it because you kind of see a whole different way of living.
Okay.
You know, you kind of see, you know, the built environment kind of be king, if you like, and you see there's some fantastic structures that they've.
But I think those kind of experiences give you really good perspective.
They do,
because
you
can, on one hand, you can obviously see where cultures and countries and cities have really embraced nature, and you can see the contrast of that. And maybe if you spend a bit of time there, you can maybe get an insight into how the people are and
absolutely
how that's impacting on sort of the health and the stress levels, the kind of things that we've been talking about.
Definitely,
over the last hour.
Definitely. But yeah, I think you'd enjoy it. I think you'd appreciate it.
Yeah, I think it's kind of like one of those bucket list things.
It is. You've done it as well, then. Yeah.
So I just want to do that. So yeah, I think we'll do that.
The kids would enjoy it as well. There's lots to do around there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think I'm gonna, and then the other thing as well is, see, we're in that funny space at the moment because we're just sort of moving house.
Oh, okay.
So it's like, do you plan an expensive holiday whilst you're sort of re-renovating your house and so forth? So I think all of our focus this year will be around sort of just doing that, working on that big project.
Of course.
Which I'm quite excited about because I'm sort of looking at, I'm looking at creating like a sort of like mini sort of studio space.
Okay.
That's
pretty cool.
In where I live. So,
yeah.
Because my big ultimate ambition is to actually create like an art gallery somewhere here in the city centre. A permanent art gallery. That just kind of not just sells fish and rocks. Actually just sells the whole complete piece. But gives people some inspiration and some ideas.
Absolutely.
Almost like a destination place.
Sure.
So this will be sort of like a step in that.
Absolutely. How do you see that looking then? That gallery type of environment.
So literally it would be like a roving art gallery. So like in an art gallery you have like a collection of pieces within the space for like a period of time. So I think I would take the approach of just sort of using these natural pieces and creating sort of like different zones or different areas and different types of concepts and sort of develop it like that. But I suppose the way, in terms of from a business perspective, it would very much model itself against how kitchen design showrooms, how they build and sort of retail their business.
Okay. Yeah.
So I would look to so whatever is in our range of what we sell, as well as sort of ideas in terms of like what we want to sort of communicate to the world in terms of how to design an aquarium or how to look after one or aquascape. It'd be like a perfect place to kind of
show the range, really.
Show the range, but also as well, like there'd be like a studio space out there, but we would run the podcast and
but you could have a space as well where you're actually doing a design piece for the aquarium as well with the customer, couldn't you?
This is it.
Which is cool. So you're completely personalising your own aquarium to the colour of the fish, type of plants,
that's right,
type of rock. I think that could be quite special actually.
And for me, like the best way I could describe it is like, for me, if I could create something that was very similar to the Apple Store.
Yeah, okay.
That you walk in and it's just like an experience. Yeah. It's not just a place you just go and buy something.
Yeah,
you know?
You want to stay there.
Yeah, and it's also not just a place where people who are into fish could go to. I want it to be like really accessible to people outside of the hobby, quote unquote.
Yeah,
you know?
okay.
I think that would be like an important sort of aspect of the direction of how I would want to grow that and make that reality. So
that's exciting.
That's my big idea. And
that's exciting.
Create a template from that and then see where you can go.
Absolutely.
Around the world. So.
What's the largest tank that you've done then so far?
So far, the largest one was a 3 metre long by 80 centimetres by 80 centimetres room divider. That was really cool because the client acquired this house and it was like a regular sort of semi-detached or fully detached house, and he basically demolished the house and just rebuilt something completely sort of different to everything within the area. And what was really amazing was he was lucky enough to acquire like an acre of land on the back of it.
As you do.
It's normal,
absolutely,
you know? And it was just like an amazing project to be a part of.
That's cool.
And that home was sort of like a like a pictogram for biophilia.
Yeah, for sure.
On multiple levels, you know.
Yeah.
You got the Savannah theory kicking in, where you've got sort of big, massive views and you sort of
landscaping, absolutely, yeah, for sure.
And then you also would like use like a lot of, even just down to the choice of materials in terms of the walls and the flooring. It was all sort of really well thought out from a biophilic perspective. So
that's really interesting.
The tank that we been commissioned to build was almost like the high value sort of emblem piece to sort of like top off everything. That sort of tied everything together. So yeah, I felt really fortunate to get involved in that project actually. And then from that particular project, that's sort of, as you know, with these things, you do a good job on one project.
Absolutely.
And either you get a referral from the client to their network, or you use the images to sort of validate your ability to do on future projects. And from there, it was we kind of got into that whole world of big tanks.
So what does it take then to say, if you wanted to do, I don't know, say that whole wall became an almost tank, like you see, I mean, Dubai will be a massive place when you go there, you'll see these things, they're huge. And then is that just a completely different, almost like an industrial scale, or? Yeah,
so when you're talking like big sort of wall integrated tanks, you just top this up. Yeah, when you're talking about these large integrated tanks, you've got to sort of take your head out of fish tank and think of architectural structure.
Right, okay.
And the moment and that was one of the sort of big challenges of me that I had to sort of like overcome when sort of going into these sort of types of projects. So when you sort of when you have to sort of build something into the structure of a building.
Yeah, okay.
There's more than just what lights and what filters can go into the tank. You have to think about structural
loads
and tolerances. And you find yourself talking to structural surveyors. And you're like, how do I snowball into this world? But,
okay.
So you typically you sort of work out where's it going to go, and then the first thing you sort of find out is what services can we get to that particular space, i.e. plumbing, water mains, drainage, electricity, and then you look at how can we structurally make sure that the space can hold in the capacity of the tank.
And that starts to drive the thickness of your glass, no doubt, and the type of seals that you use.
Exactly it. Okay. So normally, like for example, with a glass tank, you hold it together using silicone, but we'll use. Is
that what's happening here?
So this silicone's probably it's specifically got it cures and it has a particular sort of high tensile strength, so it's flexible but strong as well. But when you go to sort of like really large tanks, you will be using like the structural silicone that they use on like big glass buildings.
Yeah.
So it's like what I've come to learn over the years of doing this job is that aquarium design isn't really about the fish and the plants and what goes into. That's like the bit that you do after. The main part is actually having a good understanding of how the built environment comes together and working out where this particular glass box or acrylic box fits within that whole scheme.
Yeah.
So this stuff's quite easy to plan.
So what's the usual kind of thing with this now then? Do you have to, would you fill it up with water after you've planted, or how does it work?
Yeah, I mean, you can go. There's two ways about it actually. So you can go for the approach of putting cling film over the top of it, and then just keeping it humid and allowing the plants to kind of root themselves in, and then they'll grow out, and then they're much more robust in terms of that growing phase. But what a lot of these plants will do is they will almost like shed because a lot of these plants are grown in greenhouses.
Okay.
And what they'll do is they'll shed their terrestrial leaves and sort of adapt to a more aquatic environment. Right. So if they've got a strong root base in terms of to gather nutrients and sort of anchor themselves into the substrate, then that process is a lot quicker. But as you can see with these, The root system's quite well developed already.
Oh, okay, so they'll take to that quite quickly.
They'll take to this quite quickly, and that's because of
that gel.
That gel.
Okay.
So just have to think about that gel. It's almost like I don't know if you remember it in science. You had like agar.
Yeah.
So that sort of thing. So it's just full of nutrients, and it's like a really good growing medium for the plants to establish themselves to grow whilst they're sort of in transport, and but this is a really nice plant to plant because it doesn't tend to tangle as much. You can get quite nice individual stems and just plant them out.
The fishes they wouldn't get tangled up in
No.
Okay.
No, fishes quite like, most fishes tend to like dense planted areas because it's where they kind of like hide and recluse.
Yeah, okay.
So you'll find if fish stress levels are usually the highest when they've got no sort of place to sort of relax and get away from big eyes looking into the tank. So.
And does that human interaction affect the fish?
Well, this is quite funny actually. So like what you'll find with fish is that they'll know the hand that feeds them.
Okay.
So they will pretty much learn pretty quickly who's
giving them the good stuff.
Who's giving them the good stuff. I've seen it so many times. Like the clients at the house, and there'll be like certain members of the family will get more attention or more interaction with the fish than others because that particular person would say feed them
the most
during the day. So.
Interesting.
So this whole theory around fish having a 3-second memory is really a fallacy.
Yeah, okay.
Because if you could imagine, how could a living organism that's as
absolutely
large as a fish, for example,
survive
in an environment and not learn?
Of course.
It has to have memory, has to be able to adapt and okay, so this is the 2 more pieces left to plant, and I look forward to seeing how this grows out actually. It's quite a nice piece.
It's brilliant.
But it's interesting how, what I like about these kind of scapes that I do with these particular kind of setups, it's the simplicity of it.
Yeah, for sure.
I always try to do simple designs that maybe other people who are not in the hobby could replicate quite easily. But I know that once as long as it's looked after properly and cared for, you will get that visual impact once it starts to grow out.
Yeah.
Okay. That's
it's amazing. It's the most relaxed I've felt in a long time. Brilliant, absolutely brilliant.
That was another thing as well, doing this podcast. I think it was about 6 episodes in, I realised that actually the value in terms of like the guest experience when they come on to have a chat with me is witnessing this.
Massively.
Right then. That's your tank.
Brilliant, mate. That's amazing. Absolutely amazing. Do you call it something?
I haven't thought of a name.
No. I like Pride Rock.
You call it Pride Rock?
I think that's cool.
Okay, we'll call it Pride then.
Yeah, Pride's cool.
Pride.
Yeah, I like that.
Okay, there's your lecturer's art piece. Pride.
Awesome.
Excellent. So now,
wicked. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you very much.
Really enjoyed it. Thank you for the experience. Fantastic.
Really enjoyed the conversation, and I'll look forward to seeing you at the next Life Gallery.
Absolutely.
Cool.
Can't wait to get this showcased.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Nice.
Fantastic.
All right.